Clickforms Basic Training Webinar continued.
My name is Patty Guthrie, and I'm in tech support here in Clickforms, and I also do some of the training webinars. This is an introduction to the basic features of Clickforms. I'm going to go ahead and go over the most common features of Clickforms, as well as some of the basic services. So I wanted to go through and start up. One of the things I wanted to do today was to actually show you that Clickforms has changed in registration too. So if you're either new to Clickforms, or if in fact you're not new to Clickforms, but you just updated and you're just getting a refresher, some of the way you might be registering has changed. And this is the new screen, so that's why I wanted to go ahead and make sure that I was starting this from the beginning. A lot of the times I start from already having brought it into Clickforms and open up Clickforms and showing actual reports, but I'm going to show registration this time too. The first time you install Clickforms, or if you just recently did the update to 9.15, you're going to see this screen here. You just go ahead and click register. If you're just evaluating, you may have gone ahead and did evaluate instead. That's fine. When you're just trying to register, you should go ahead and click register. And it's going to want to know what your Appraisal World email address and password is. This means the email address that you used when you signed up for Appraisal World. Appraisal World is our other website. We have two websites. We might have more than that, but we have two websites, bradfordsoftware.com and appraisalworld.com. Appraisal World is sort of a repository. We keep a lot of different things there, including you can log in, you can set yourself as an appraiser to be searched, you can buy services on it, and we're talking about trying to do orders and various other things through it as well. Anyone who has a Clickforms account already does have an Appraisal World email address and password, and others who sign up will always get one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put mine in because I know what it is. If you don't know what your Appraisal World password is, or can't remember which email address you signed up for, or both, you can always call technical support at 800-622-8727, or you can always send an email to and request it, and we can send it to the email on file at support@bradfordsoftware.com. I know mine, so I'm going to put it in. So I'll put it in. I do sign in. This is what's going to come up next. It's going to say your information has been retrieved. Please enter it. Verify that it is all correct. In my case, the answer is yes. So I'll go ahead and do next. It's going to ask for my credentials. I don't actually have any, but that's okay. I'm going to fill it in anyways if I do. There we go. 1/1/2020. Sure, why not? And then this is exactly how they're going to be on the form. So all this information that you're entering is going to actually be inputting on the forms. And that's why we ask you to enter it, to make it faster. I've had people skip this because you can, but it will, in fact, as I said, automatically go on the cert forms. So it's a good idea to enter it. You want this to be exactly how it's going to be on the forms. So I'm just going to say next, and I'm going to register. That says congratulations. I'm going to go ahead and say save. And that way I know it wrote to my license file. Comes up right away with what's new in this version. Now you're going to see this what's new anytime you have a new update. The other thing you're always going to see when you open Clickforms, if there's been a change, is the news. This is often actually usually where I start, but I wanted to show the new registration process as well. So here's Clickforms, and I usually start off by going over a lot of preferences. To go to preferences, go to edit, and then preferences. And we're just going to, again, I'm not going to go through all of these. That would take forever and add way too much time to it. But I am going to skim through some of them and encourage you to go ahead and look through these on your own. But I am going to go through some of the most important ones. And the first one I'm going to click on is Startup. That's because that's something we often get questions on, and people really want to try to fine-tune Clickforms to try to make it as fast as possible for them. Make it as fast as possible. Have it open to exactly what it is you want it to open to. Here we are, application startup. You could choose exactly what it is you want it to do. In this case, mine is set to do nothing, which is why when you saw it open, it was to a blank window. That's the default, and that's actually fairly common. If I'm remoting in, assisting somebody, I'll see that they're set to do nothing, and that's perfectly fine. However, we do have other options. For example, you can always set it to create a new empty container. One of the things that all software programs seem to do is that they seem to come up with their own terminology. we call a container what is actually the file, the envelope. It's hard to describe. It's containing all the forms. The container is what is actually known as the file name, but it's more than it's just the file name and there's a bunch of forms stuffed in it. There's actually a lot of XML code and things like that that go into it. So it is, if you ever hear us say, oh, let's look at that container, or let's drag these into a new container, or anything like that, it may have something to do with that particular file. And so we call it a container, sort of like it's an empty file folder. And you might, if you want, you could have this open to a brand new empty container. There won't be any forms in it, which is why it's empty, but I've known sometimes people to do that. Perhaps if you create a lot from scratch, you might do that. The next most common after do nothing would be the display the templates. I will go over creating templates if you're not familiar or comfortable with it, but a lot of times people will have created many of their own templates to be using for files and for reports, and therefore they might want to display the template dialog. I have had people have this, use the most recently opened file. Again, I'm not going to go over most of these in a great deal of detail. Things like folders, those point to where all the basic folders are. As you see, most things are stored under Documents, My Clickforms, and I'll show you that again later real quick. And that's fine, that's the basics. If you were doing something unusual, you had everything stored on a server, or you're working off of someone else's computer or something, you might change, or we might help you change these, but most people, you would just not have to worry about any of these. Same thing with here. Saving, however, is one I like to bring up, because we do have a lot of questions on that. The default is set to automatically save every 5 minutes. The default is also set to save report backup files. One thing that a lot of times people don't know is that when you're working on Clickforms, you are actually having your report backed up automatically as well. Why do we do this? So not only is it automatically saving your file, but it's saving a backup elsewhere. This is because, like a lot of other Windows programs, database programs, all sorts of type of programs, if there's some sort of weird power fluctuation, it can cause a file to get corrupt. Obviously, it's something we never want to have happen, but I can't imagine the amount of times I've had someone call up and say, hey, I was working on my report and suddenly I lost power and now my report is corrupt. Or maybe they're on a laptop and the laptop suddenly shuts down, and any sort of unexpected computer shutdown can always corrupt what you're working on. I've seen that for many, many years. However, because the backup is a snapshot, normally the backup is fine. Therefore, we keep a second backup in a second location. So if you ever, hopefully not, but have that happen, or something happens to your file, something went wrong, feel free to call us or send an email, and we can either send you instructions on how to get that backup, or we'll be happy to remote it and help you find it. I don't think I've ever seen any set to borrower's name. I'm much more likely to see street address or file number, but we had